So, Joe Biden gets rid of the 1776 Commission, and this is something that definitely needed to be done. And I'm going to talk about my personal opinion, and then I'm going to throw in some principles. Now, the 1776 Commission was constructed by Donald Trump. Remember, he gave the speech at the Grand Canyon when he talked about how our institutions are under attack and all of this stuff, all of this white identity politics type conversation. And basically, he comes up with the 1776 Commission to provide a sort of patriotic education type curriculum that he wanted in school districts. I do not agree with the federal government deciding what's inside of local school districts. I wouldn't agree with it if it's on the right, which the 1776 Commission is. It's right-wing propaganda, to be honest with you, that has been condemned and criticized by so many historians in this country as completely misleading and sort of like pseudo history. Patriotic education just sounds like that. I can't stand overly patriotic, nationalistic without truly understanding the history of the country. It does not. It talks about how it criticizes the civil rights era. It criticizes feminist movements. It talks about how racism and identity politics are forms of fascism, and all of this stuff. And the worst part about it is that he was trying to force it down people's throats, and I think that is terrible. Why would the federal government come to my local school district? Let's say that I am an urban student, a young black student, that I'm like 10 years old in freaking 3rd, 5th grade, whatever grade a 10-year-old would be in, and now I'm being forced to read about how great American history is. I think that my community that I live in, that is more culturally appropriated towards my history as an American, because we all have a different history as Americans. Like, for me, being African American, I understand how I got here, what the struggle of African Americans was here. For women, it's going to be something else to them. For Asian Americans, it's going to be something else for them. For Italian Americans, for Americans that have their roots in the UK, in Britain, it's different for all of us of how we got here and what the American experience has been for us. And then when you group those together, like European Americans, what their experience compared to African Americans is, what their experience is compared to immigrants, Latinos. Everyone has a different experience of how they got here and how the American system has shaped their ancestors and their history. And to try to lump all of that together and say, this nationalistic, overly patriotic, complete disregard for everyone's individual experience, and just brainwash them and say, America is a great place. Like, that really sounds like Kim Jong-un type stuff to me, and I'm like completely opposed to it. And not only that, the spirit in which he did it in was in opposition to the 1614 project, which was released by, I believe her name is Nicole Hannah-Jones. And I read some of it, and there's criticisms of it and there's praise of it, and it's controversial. But for me, it showed like another side of my own personal history as an African American. And not all of her premises were her conclusions from her premises were completely right, but most of the facts inside of the report were. And it was just interesting to learn all of that to me, as a Black American. So for me, that's going to be like something that's important. And to him, for him to write that in opposition to that, it should be okay for me to say, what, if somebody in, I don't know, like Southern Texas wants the 1776 commission's material to be in their school, if that community votes, our local school district will read this because this is what we believe. And then the 1619 project, if my local school district says we're going to read this because this is what's important to us, we're going to put that inside of our school district. That's completely fine. Does anyone have to force anyone to believe what they believe? Um, and their ideas, to bring unity or to bring sort of like a common ancestry to people that live in the United States to have less fighting and things like that. But I think that it's good to have diverse opinions and diverse viewpoints. Like, we can't just be a monolith and kind of just pretend like things don't exist that do exist. So yeah, I am completely with Joe Biden. I'm so happy that he got rid of that. I do think that it's great that he reinstated diversity training in the federal government. He's not doing it in private businesses, so no business is being forced to have diversity training. It's only for federal employees, and with him being the head of the federal government, he should be able to decide that. And I agree with that decision to have that training when you have federal government employees serving so many different ethnicities, nationalities. It makes sense for them to have some sort of understanding of what they're encountering, so that there's less discrimination. The government is supposed to treat everyone equally, so I agree with that decision.